I'm happy that it's not 49th. We've been 49th for a long time. And so I'm excited that we've gotten to 44th, but we have a long way to go.
Well, you know, first of all, being an old coach, statistics, you can make them say what you want them to say, depending on how you look at them. I think we've made great strides over the last 10 years. I don't think we're as bad as some people portray us. Could we get better? Obviously, we can all get better.
I'm not going to blame the education system. I'm going to say that it's a lot of it has to do with different factors like socioeconomic status, neighborhoods kids grow up in, their family life. We have no idea the things a lot of these kids go through. A lot of them go through struggles I can't even imagine going through at 12 and 13 years old. Louisiana has always been at the bottom of the charts, I think, when it comes to education. It doesn't surprise me at all. It really doesn't.
The problems are not with education. The problems are social, but it's not politically correct to say so.
Educators and lawmakers across the nation are engaged in ever-escalating disputes over a set of education standards known as the Common Core.
I'm opposing Common Core so strongly and fighting to get it out of Louisiana is that it has become something very different than what it started.
Why education is center for us is because education has been on the front line of the attacks because it is about money. Because if you follow the money, there are those who want to take what little is there and transport it for their own purposes to someplace far away.
I think the teacher, by and large, it has the greatest in-school impact on kids. And I think school leaders have the second greatest impact on students. So our school leaders also impact our teachers. So both our teachers and our school leaders play a critical role in the education of our students.
It's tense. It's very tense. There are a lot of people who are scared to speak out, scared to say anything to the principal, like we're all rushing to join the union at the same time. It can sink you really quickly. They will definitely, if they don't like you, they'll get rid of you.
So many programs are coming down. You know, education is a political hotbed, and everyone thinks they know, and a lot of them do know what is best for children. But we tackle so many different initiatives that I don't think we do any of them to the best of our ability. I think we all do them with the good intents of our heart, but I don't think we do them to the best way we can.
So charter schools, the charter schools law dates back, I think, to 1996 in Louisiana. So the Louisiana legislature created the opportunities for charter schools to be part of our options for students in the 1990s. And I think that when you have a state who was 49th, now is 44th in some metrics, that you have to put every solution on the table.
I was at an inner city school for 10 years. We were a magnet school. I mean, now that's a lot more money being poured into it. It afforded us more teachers, fabulous programs that drew in more desirable children, really, that are going to pull, basically it's all about scores. So these are the kids that are coming to that school, that inner city school by choice because of the programs that were offered, and it pulled our scores way up.
I think we should do whatever it takes to make sure that they get the best education possible. Charter schools are public schools. And we have a really high bar for accountability for charter schools. Our traditional public schools can underperform year after year after year. With our charter schools, if they're not performing, they lose their charter.
So at the end of the 10-year grant, when the money ran out, we could no longer afford the extra teachers or the extra programs. Those kids scattered, went to another school. Our scores plummeted.
I'm not a big fan of charter schools, just because I've seen, and there are some good ones out there, but I've seen a lot of them who are open for 2, 3, 4 years, again with selective admissions, and then no longer open. And I just wonder what those dollars could be used for in a public school that you know is going to be there from year to year. You know, back in the old days when I first started, one of the biggest things about being a teacher was they had such a great retirement. And it's still there. But now with like drop money, 3 years of retirement in a savings account for you, it makes no interest anymore. Where older folks who retired earlier, sometimes they make 10, 12, 17%. Well, that's a drawback to the people getting in there now because they know, yeah, we'll get that money, but it's not going to have any interest to it.
It is up to our districts to determine a compensation plan. That's not something that was decided at the state level. And for the most part, those plans are based on demand. So that allows local school districts to think about what their needs are and to offer incentives to people to help them meet those most immediate needs. And that's something that I support. I think that there are opportunities to compensate teachers at even higher levels if we organize resources differently. For instance, if we have teachers who are highly effective, we want to get them in front of as many students as possible. And so one way to incentivize that is through extra compensation.
You know, I think Compass is a good thing. It holds people accountable, not only teachers, it holds administrators accountable. But as far as just how it measures what teachers are doing, I like it because it focuses on students working rather than teachers working.
In Louisiana public education, they base how well you are as a teacher on how well your students do, which don't necessarily collide all the times. They're not the same. You can't really base a teacher's effectiveness as a teacher on how well a kid does, because any student can just not listen and just not learn. Like, every student has the ability to learn, but some students who have figured out that it's all about teachers will purposely sink a teacher.
People are scared to go into education. It's something, first of all, we're tired of being scapegoats to begin with. We're just the scapegoats. Job security means something to everyone in every profession. When there's no job security, why is someone going to invest all those years in the degree and the work that it takes to get there when there's no job security?
It makes a huge difference, because now you have teachers who are hustling because you've attached a paycheck to how well their students do. By that same token, you also have teachers who, I mean, let's just be honest, some people are going to do what they have to do to get a check. So people have fallen down for that. A lot of people have gone under because of that. He put us in a pretty precarious situation as far as attaching test scores to money. That's never good. That's not good. People are going to do what's best for them.
Bias is purely subjective. Recent legislation requires, and this is a quote, I wrote it down exactly word for word, requires districts to build compensation systems based on effectiveness, demand, and experience. Now, the demand thing is what I'm kind of wondering about here, because so they're like saying, well, here's a loophole. If you go into a high demand area, we'll give you a good evaluation, which totally nullifies the evaluation based on performance.
I think we've come a long way with Compass. We have the value-added measure scores that are communicated back to teachers and school leaders. We have the student learning objectives that are selected by our educators and then used in this process. And then we, of course, have our observations. So I think through using all of this information, it's important to give teachers feedback on their practice. That's how everyone improves. I also think that teaching is incredibly complex, and that we have to consider to make sure that our evaluation system is helping us get the results that we want.
That we can't meet every single criterion on that rubric. I think it's unjust a little bit. I think that is a big time problem when it comes to the education system. As soon as we start ranking teachers, we start putting all the pressure on them. Because at the end of the day, the kids can fail and they'll still be promoted to the next grade. We fail, we're looking for a job.
I don't know. I've talked to a lot of administrators who don't like it either, but they're under stress for their jobs also. As far as student performance, where you have parental involvement, students are going to perform better. We all know that. And so all the teacher has to do is say, well, you know what? I'm going to just go work out here at this school or over there at that school where the kids have, their parents are involved and working with the teacher, and I'm going to get a good evaluation. Does that mean that's a good teacher? Heck no, absolutely not. So it's just subjective, purely subjective. Now, and what we're seeing people saying now is, well, the parents aren't involved, there are no parents, the kid doesn't care, so it's all on the teacher. So why don't we say, it's the same thing as saying to a state representative, why don't you have all these welfare recipients working? You need to go as the state representative and motivate them to work and get off welfare. It's not the state representative's fault, neither is it the teacher's fault that in the classroom you've got a handful of students who are not there to learn, but because teachers have no more authority in the classroom, there it is. We're told to get creative, find ways to keep these kids in the classroom.
So we need to pay attention to the outcomes of the evaluations and how those outcomes are driving change. And I anticipate that system will continue to evolve over time as we get more information about teaching practice, and we also think about more ways that we can impact student learning.
Miserable, absolutely.
They can't be creative on their own. Like, I gave a project the other day that was like, make a poster about the compromise of 1850, you know, just make sure you include where it happened, when it happened, and who were the big characters or players in it. And they're like, looking at me like, what are you talking about? So they start drawing out like, 1, who was in it, and they write the names out. 2, like, draw the state. You have to break down every little thing. These kids, they don't have any creative skills. It's kind of scary. They don't know how to critically think. They don't know how to analyze anything. They don't know how to create things on their own. If you're not telling them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, what it should look like, they can't do it. 13-year-olds, it's terrifying.
And I made a comment, I went back and read it probably 30 times before I deleted it because I was so upset about having to delete it. And I said something to the effect of, parents, I see this stuff from the inside, it is bad. Take your kids out of public school, homeschool them, put them in private school. And then I added, yes, it will be a sacrifice because most people work and the financial burden. And then I added, but we're sacrificing our children anyway. And what I meant by that was we're sacrificing them to Common Core. It's an experiment. Then I got called in that day. And it was my new principal. I just moved to that school and she had just gotten moved to that school. And she continued with, I need for you to take this off, take this down. That was where she put take this down. So I questioned her through my tears. I said, well, what about my First Amendment rights? You don't have any First Amendment rights when you work for any sort of public entity, government entity, whatever it may be. You don't have First Amendment rights. You don't state your opinion unless it's for it. If it's anti, you just don't. I went home that evening and read it probably 30 times, again and again, and I didn't want to delete it. I was mad I felt violated. I really felt violated. It's hard to explain. Maybe it's my American blood. Just as an American, we're like used to knowing that we do have freedom of speech. And I felt so violated.
In our district is we teach a curriculum aligned with Common Core. But I still, personally, as Coach Prescott, I still believe our teachers know how to teach and know what the students need to know based on the standards. So, you know, we don't really have a huge problem with it. I'd like to see a little more direction through it and not all the fighting in the legislature. And, you know, so sometimes with the political fighting, I don't know if teachers know exactly what's expected of them. And so they're doing their very best, but I think they could do better if they had a clear line of judgment there going straight to what was supposed to be done, which is why we're looking at standard-based grading here, to where we're going to measure if the student knows the standard or not A, B, C, D, or F.
I believe the statistic at the end of the day is that the committee changed 28% of those standards. So now our educators have the job, well, once we get them approved and official, our educators will have the job to go back and determine where the changes have been made and figure out what they'll do about those changes. More clarity. So in the previous standards, or the standards that our students currently have, there was some mention of teaching methods, and so all of that's been removed. Our standards are about teaching, or about identifying what it is that kids are supposed to know and be able to do, not how teachers have to go about teaching that. So I think that clarity is important.
Do you believe that you can still teach creatively in the classroom?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Is that there isn't any flexibility in the classroom anymore.
There is no autonomy. There's no room for aha moments anymore.
Teachers can't teach the way they want to teach because now we have a rubric, so we're being told what to do. We can't just go in there and say, oh, I have a creative idea.
It's all about the almighty test. And the almighty test is all about grading me as a teacher.
Let's make a project out of this. No, you can't do that. You have to go by your lesson plan, go by something that's going to get you a 4 on that rubric, because you never know when an administrator's coming in. They've taken creativity out of the classroom. It's bad. Public education has gone downhill tremendously. Even since I first started. I've been teaching for 7 years, and I can just tell how it's dwindled.
So in 5 years, I would love to see us as the fastest improving state in the nation. Where that ultimately gets us in the rankings, I don't know.
I hope that it can focus back on the kids actually learning and not just learning how to check A, B, C, or D.
I want the school climate to be positive. I want people to stay in the teaching profession, be proud to stay in their schools.
I'm hopeful that the new governor is going to help us.
I tell my kids all the time, life isn't multiple choice. Like, I know y'all are going through and learning A, B, C, or D. That's not how it works in the real world.